Illinois. Can everyone hear us? I'm hoping that's the case. Otherwise, we will get a message. My name is Jen Hughes, Director of Design and Creative Placemaking at the National. Joining you virtually from Washington, D.C. And it's a real pleasure to be here. And my goal today is to demystify the NEA's application process and introduce you to our program. I want to leave you after the session knowing that the NEA is a funding resource available to nonprofits, schools, and local governments. So just to give you a quick overview of the NEA, we are a federal agency created in 1965 and are now the single largest funder of the arts in the country. NEA's mission is to advance artistic excellence, creativity, and innovation for the benefit of individuals and communities all across the country. For fiscal year 2018, we have an operating budget of $153 million. To give you a sense for what the NEA funds, on the left-hand side, you can get a sense for the eligible entities to apply to the NEA. And it's important to note that we support projects. So on the right-hand side, so the NEA funds nonprofits, local government agencies, educational institutions, and tribal communities. You'll see on the right-hand side a quick little short summary of activities and entities that we are not able to fund. And this really includes general operating support. We're asking for NEA applications to submit a particular project, facilities construction, purchase, or renovations, as well as grants to individual artists. So let's just run through some of the basics of eligibility to apply to the NEA. There are certain requirements you must meet to apply for an NEA grant. First, you must be a nonprofit 501c3 at the time of application. You do not, and must also have 3 years of programming history. You must be in compliance with reporting requirements for previous NEA awards. And it's also important to note that for NEA grants, you must be able to provide a one-to-one cost share match of non-federal funds. The staff here is really flexible on helping you be creative on how you meet that one-to-one match, and it can be achieved in a variety of ways, including earned income through ticket sales or in-kind donations of space. The match can also be a combination of these, or consider volunteer hours or services towards the project. To give you a sense for how the NEA reviews applications to our grant program, first, we conduct all of our application reviews by a peer review panel, which is made up of experts in the field. The panelists are diverse in terms of geography, gender, ethnicity, and expertise, and reflects the particular artistic disciplines that you might be applying to. The review criteria for all of our applications is artistic excellence and artistic merit, and those are legislative review criteria that we follow in our application review. Once the peer review completes their service, panel recommendations are submitted to the National Council of the Arts for review and approval. And finally, the last step is that the council will make its recommendations for sign-off by the NEA chairman. Now, it's really important to note that if applicants are not recommended for a grant, we encourage them to find out why by calling the appropriate discipline specialist. The NEA staff is very flexible to provide panel comments after an application is submitted and adjudicated. And we're also available to support you as we pull together your application. Just to give you a sense for the various funding categories at the NEA, the first is our partnership agreement. We also offer grants for organizations, and that's really going to be the bulk of what I'm going to talk about today with all of you. And last, we have grants for individuals, which are limited to creative writing fellowships and translation projects. Generally, it's important to note that each application can submit one application for organization per year, with some exceptions, which I will cover. So the first thing I mentioned were our partnership agreements, and I bring up the slide because it's important to note that the way the NEA operates is we grant out funding, 40% of our funding, to the 50 designated state arts agencies, territories, and regional arts organizations. Illinois Arts Council receives an agreement each year with the NEA, and so that's also a wonderful source for funding as you pursue your project. So this just gives you an overview as well as of the 6 regional arts agencies that support your region. So now let's get into the NEA Artworks category. This is really the bread and butter grant portfolio here at the NEA. And we typically make around 2,000 grants each year to organizations all throughout the United States. Applications are submitted to one of our 15 discipline programs, and we have a February or July deadline each year. So you must select which of those 2 deadlines you want to apply to. Funding is available for all stages of the artistic process, including creation, presentation, exhibition, artification and enrichment, as well as services to the field, such as art conferences and professional development. It's important to note that we fund both large and small projects, existing and new projects, and projects that take place in any part of the 50 states, DC, and US territories. All grants require at least a 1-to-1 match, as I mentioned before, and in the artworks category range from $10,000 to $100,000 in grant funding. And this is typically for a project that spans 1 to 2 years. Up on the screen now, you'll just see the 15 program disciplines across the agency. As you are selecting an application to go into the NEA for review, you're going to want to take a look at which discipline you should apply for based on the content of your project. Each of our discipline programs has different project types, which you can see on our grant guidelines page on our website. You should be thinking about a specific project or a set of activities and not an entire season or year of programming. Please keep in mind those February and July deadlines, and note that some different project types might be funded at each deadline. Artist communities and design, 2 of those disciplines have only a February deadline, so you definitely want to take a look at the guidelines there. And just a reminder that each of these disciplines has dedicated staff, and we're very accessible. Every employee at the NEA is listed up on our website, as well as the direct contact for program specialists to help guide you through the application process. So we certainly encourage you to reach out to us. In addition to artwork, Challenge America is our other program category. So an organization must decide whether to apply to artwork or Challenge America for a fiscal year. This category is really what we like to call the gateway to the NEA. It primarily supports small and mid-sized organizations that are focused on extending the reach of art to underserved communities. Underserved is defined by organizations or communities that are limited by geography, ethnicity, economics, or disability. We have an annual deadline in this category, which is in April, and these are all straight $10,000 grants with very specific project types. You can apply for a guest artist project, which would refer to an arts event or events that will feature 1 or more guest artists. Could apply to cultural tourism, specifically the unified promotion of community-wide arts activities or the development of cultural tourism projects. Or you could apply to public art projects, which is intended to primarily support visual arts, such as murals or sculptures that are developed throughout a meaningful community engagement process. So all awards in this category are $10,000, which still require that 1-to-1 match. The next category of program that we have here at the NEA for grant making is Our Town. So keep in mind you can submit an application both to either the Artworks or Challenge America category, as well as the Our Town grant program. And this in particular is the program that I manage under creative placemaking. So this is for creative placemaking projects that support the integration of arts, culture, and design activities into efforts that strengthen communities by advancing local, economic, physical, and/or social outcomes. And there are 2 types of funding that are available in this category. The one that is probably most relevant to the folks on the call is our place-based program, place-based projects, that include a range of arts engagement, cultural planning, design activities, or creative industry support, and require partnership between a local government and a nonprofit. And one of the partners must be an arts, culture, or design organization, as well as have the letter of support from the highest ranking officials within your community. So that could be a tribal government leader, it could be the mayor, or your town manager. And this is a program that has an annual opportunity in September, and grants generally range from $25,000 to $200,000. So we currently have our grant guidelines up on our website, so take a look at those. And a great resource to really help you get started is our Exploring Our Town Storybook, which features case studies of various projects that we have funded through the Our Town program in the past. You can dive into these 77 specific case studies of communities of all shapes and sizes to really get a sense for what might be competitive in this program category. So this website will include large, mid-sized, small urban projects, rural and tribal projects, as well as a wide range of artistic activities that take place. I'm going to very quickly glaze over our individual categories because it's very limited to literature fellowships. And these are fellowships for individuals in the areas of creative writing, poetry, and prose. This program for individuals has a March deadline, and these are straight $25,000 grants that do not require a matching amount. There is also a literature fellowship for translation, which is our December deadline. So these are for individual fellowships for translation that enable recipients to translate work in prose, poetry, or drama from other languages into English. And I just wanted to flag that this is our only category for particular individuals. The way that we encourage artists and designers to engage in projects that the NEA can fund and support is by working with an organization on a particular project activity. We have one other category here at the NEA that I wanted to cover, which is our Research Artworks program. We have a really robust Office of Research and Analysis, and the Research Artworks grants support research that investigates the value and/or impact of the arts. We estimate that this will be an October deadline, and grants generally range from $30,000 to $100,000 and include projects that might be experimental or quasi-experimental designs. Oftentimes, these projects come from universities. And lastly, you should certainly spend some time on our website because the NEA releases a wide range of research, publications, and analyses on topics affecting artists and arts organizations. We do an annual survey of public participation in the arts, which really tracks arts participation throughout the country, and we'll provide information on the contribution of the arts to the economy. So this is the really important piece of the grants workshop, but also quite tedious, our application process. It's really important that organizations get a jump on this application process well in advance of the deadline. First, you'll want to become familiar with the system for awards management, SAM.gov. Anyone applying for a federal grant has to go through this system. And you will have to complete this registration process, including providing a signed notarized letter stating that you are an authorized administrator and vetting the organization's status. You'll also have to register on grants.gov, which is required to submit your application to the NEA. And failure to complete these registration processes in advance of the deadline will make you ineligible to actually apply to that deadline. So we encourage you to also spend some time on our website. We have lots of great webinars and tutorials that guide you through this process. And once you get through that, the key is really to submitting the SF424 to grants.gov by the deadline. We encourage folks to submit it at least 10 days before the posted deadline, just in case you run into any issues. And this whole step one, part one process is very detailed on our website under our grant guidelines. And that's really where you're going to submit the organizational information and other administrative items, as well as a very brief overview of the project. The real meat of your application will actually happen in part 2, where you will submit the application materials via the NEA's applicant portal, including a narrative, your budget information, and work samples, etc. Any part program has very detailed instructions that are downloadable in a PDF form on arts.gov, so you can take a look at what's required to submit your application. So how do you get started, and where do you find all this information that I've been talking about? You'll want to go to arts.gov and then select under grants and apply for a grant. This is how you'll begin to see all of the open opportunities as well as our grant guidelines. So just a few helpful tips. I can't emphasize enough to complete your grants.gov and SAM.gov registrations as soon as possible. Even if you're not totally sure that you want to apply for a July deadline or any other deadlines that are coming up in the immediate future, just get yourself set up in these systems so the moment you're ready with a project, you can apply to the NEA. Contact our staff. We are incredibly accessible and love having conversations as people put together our project proposals, so certainly reach out there. On our website, you'll see a series of archived webinars as well as some scheduled webinars that are coming up around grant guidelines. In the month of June, we will have 2 webinars dedicated specifically to the Our Town Creative Placemaking Grant Program. Our website is also very easily searchable for our previously awarded grants. So if you want to see the grant awards we've been making in your state or region, you can go onto our website and take a look at that and do a search by state. Or you might be interested in what dance projects we've supported before, just to give you some inspiration as you are thinking through a project. So you can search by discipline or some keywords. We also have on our website sample application narratives, and we lastly encourage you to request feedback. Whether or not you're successful in submitting an Art Town or an Artworks or a Challenge America grant to the NEA, we encourage you to reach out for feedback so you can improve in future cycles. So just to give you a sense for what else the NEA is doing, we have a couple other really interesting partnerships that we want to put on your radar and be on the lookout for either in your local community or in future years. The Creative Forces Military Healing Arts Network is a wonderful partnership that we have with the Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs, specifically focused on supporting creative arts therapy for active duty service members and veterans. And this is work that is currently focused on 11 clinical sites throughout the country, but is also in the process of expanding. So keep your eye on this wonderful initiative in your community. We actually just concluded in April the Musical Theater Songwriting Challenge. This is a challenge that happens annually, a national competition for high school students who have a passion for writing songs that can be part of a musical theater production. If you're inspired to hear about the program this past year, check out our website and you can actually watch a series of videos and performances connected to this challenge. And lastly, I imagine some of you have already heard of the NEA Big Read, which annually supports 75 dynamic community reading programs, each designed around a single NEA Big Read selection. The titles in the NEA Big Read library vary in genre, theme, settings, and point of view, and are great community programming. We also have a wonderful high school poetry recitation contest that happens each year, Poetry Out Loud. All 50 states and territories send their finalists to the national competition here in DC, which just wrapped up in April. Blue Star Museums is a wonderful program that's getting ready to kick off Memorial Day, which offers free admissions to more than 2,000 museums to active duty military personnel and their families. So if you fall into that category, we encourage you to take advantage of this wonderful program. And lastly, we have Shakespeare in American Communities, which are grants to support performances and the works of William Shakespeare for students. And as I conclude, I think it's just worthwhile while to really acknowledge the scale and breadth of the arts and the impact on the economy. In a recent research report that we issued in 2015, $763 billion was contributed to the U.S. economy for the arts and cultural sector, which really amounts to an impressive amount of 4.2% of GDP. So it's important to remember the incredible role and power that arts have all across the country and your community, and we really stand ready and enthusiastic to support the projects that you hope to put forward from the local community. So with that, I just wanted to wrap up and thank you all for your time and encourage you to spend some time on our website, and also wanted to open the floor to any questions folks might have.
Do we have any questions for the NEA?